Hey, this is Philip again. All right, let's see. I just paid my bills. I have time for another quick intro. And this one is really beginning level for those who are just discovering that there are maybe some things you can't do with the layers in Howler, but you can do them many times in other ways. And so for that, I will start a series of tutorials. We already have a bunch in our playlists on selections and masks and on layers if you must. But I wanted to just show when you start with something like this, let's say you want an oval, and maybe it's going to be more of an orientation that's vertical, right? So this is more of a landscape. In fact, if I resample this or resize it to even wider, let's say 1280 by 720, a little bit more narrow on the vertical direction. So let's say we have a 1280 by 720. That's maybe the starting point, but then we actually want to rotate it. So I'm going to go rotate. There's a free transform for that, by the way. Be sure to try that. That's a pretty powerful tool also. So you can certainly do a number of things with it, even just like skew it and rotation probably also. Yeah, right click and then you cancel all that. But you do have, I think, a rotate option right here to go clockwise or counterclockwise. The whole point is to start with maybe something like this, especially if you're getting ready to create assets for trees or other vertical shapes like clock towers or skyscrapers, something you want to use in a game or in an illustration to build a cityscape or something like that. So whatever it is, let's do something really simple. Let's say we want to just fill a circle, right? An oval, actually, we call it, and it will be like this. Actually, that I clicked the upper left corner of the oval tool. I need to do the lower right corner, then it's going to be a filled one. All right, and so I'm going to erase here, and I'm going to choose a different color. Let's say reddish or pinkish or whatever. Let's do something red, kind of orange, and go something in the center, go around here. So let's say I wanted this saved as a PNG file, but I want the white part to be transparent. Now there's a couple of ways to do that. One is you pick it up as a brush, the whole thing, right? And when you pick the whole thing, so you didn't make any particular selection, you just make this thing here, pick it up as a brush, and then you view the brush, or first you store it. You can store and manage a copy of it. And of course, it's not transparent. You don't see a plaid pattern here. But you can turn it into a transparent. There is a transparency color key, for example, right, where you can use a color to key the transparent part. So you just pick that. You say, hey, where it's white, I want that to be transparent. Now there's a couple of pixels along the edges that are not going to be perfect, and sometimes you need to adjust this a little bit, and sometimes you do something else. And we'll talk about those something else options a little bit later. Actually, right now, we have it in the brush now. I'm going to store that again. So we have another copy here. That one now shows with the alpha. But again, it's not totally perfect, because if we paint with this, you can see in the preview, especially if you zoom it up to full size, you can see there's a little bit of a white edge still with it, right? And that's normal because there were pixels along the edge that were neither fully white nor fully orange. They were somewhere in between. Those are the transitional pixels, or the aliased and anti-aliased, right? If you stamp it down, for example, here with the stamp tool, single click, well, after it gets the keyboard focus or the mouse focus, you can see it a little bit better as you zoom in. And there's not even just one gray level or transitional orange. There are two or three, right? Because that's really what the anti-aliasing does. So the trick with that, sometimes when you have it in the brush, one thing, if it's not too intense, you can adjust that. We call that, what do we call that? Pre-multiply correction. So when you say, okay, I want the color to be white, and wherever it's white, that should be transparent, and then do a correction along the edge. And that didn't do it. All right, so sometimes it does, and sometimes it's too late and it's already gotten some other stuff going on. So let's do that. Let's try that again. Just no, that's not what I wanted. Brush, pre-multiply correction, white it is. Yeah, it's still, if it seems like it's getting it even stronger, so it's going the wrong way. Maybe what we need to do at this point is just shrink it down a little bit, right? You can shrink the opacity or expand. The opacity, the transparency is on the outside, the opacity is on the inside. So if you shrink it down just a tiny little bit, right here, key grow, you have a curly brace option. That one makes it go the wrong way. So let's go the other way. Once, twice, boom, now it's gone. Right. So now if we do this and we paint, you're not going to see any of the white. Now that may be just the trick, and you lost half a pixel in visibility there along the edges. So if that's good enough, that's perfect. Now there's a couple of other ways. And of course, once you have that, let me do that one more time. Control, what was it? Shift, oh, there it is. Curly brace, right? And by the way, sometimes you use that to create a remarkable outline, expand it a little bit. But there you go. This is the brush you want. Let's go store it. So we have this one here without any white edges, and so what you do is you click, if you stored it and you went with some others in between, you want this one again, click it, that became your current brush, and you can see a preview of the current brush up here. You can also, if you go to settings while you have the brush tool, you can see you're on the custom brush here, right? There's several types of brushes, and then there's the whole category of particle brushes on top of that. But this one here, the custom brush, and you can actually see here creating a new one on your own, and there's plenty of other ways to create custom brushes too. What you do want to remember is that once you have a custom brush, you have the image and you have a couple of behaviors, attributes like the step distance, you have some other parameters and so on, but the image is the key thing, and that image you can save from the brush straight right there. Right, so this will save it directly to, well, maybe it's not buttons, maybe it's, I don't know, transparency, images, or something like that. So what you do is you have an option to save it here. Now you can save it as a Targa. That's our default image format for single images without layers. And when you save it with default Targa, it's a little bit different from this Targa. This Targa uses the same mechanism as JPEG, PNG, TIFF. These are going through the ImageMagick export. So the product comes with an ImageMagick converter, and you can bypass it if you simply go to that. So this format will actually even ask you, let's see, it will ask you, actually it doesn't ask you anything, it just saves it, and it saves it with the alpha channel. So there's a couple of other options. Of course, you may want to save it as a PNG directly. That's another option too. Right, so right here, PNG, and then so that way, if you later do something completely different, you get rid of this, you start the program over, you rotate, now you say you want those trees or ovals, and so I'm gonna, where's my rotate here? Free transform, there's the rotate. So, and I'm gonna clear it, and so now I'm going to free the brush there, so we don't have the custom brush anymore. So now we're back to a tiny little simple brush dab. So let's say now I want to load into the brush that saved image that I had initially. So you can go do that. Open it. Right here is the Targa version. No preview in Windows, but you could load that, or you can load the PNG. And here it is. Now it's got a little bit of opacity here at the complete brush level, but if you make that fully opaque, I mean fully, non-transparent, then what you have is that original brush, right? And you can still make it smaller as well, and stamp it down, and you see it doesn't have, or it has still a tiny little bit of edge. We didn't clean it out on the edge completely. But anyway, so that's one way to ensure that you have a transparent background in the image. In the brush, if you think through the brush, you'll quite a bit of damage or quite a bit of magic. And of course, there's a couple of other ways. So let's go back to the original. I'm going to rotate it one more time here. Rotate clockwise. I'm going to get the full size and pretend this was the original image. I'm going to disable the preview of the of the mouse image of the brush. So let's say I want to save this, right? You've drawn a couple of things, maybe in different colors, maybe also some rectangles, and let's do a filled rectangle, maybe one here, one here, one here, and for some, maybe these represent windows of your skyscraper, right? Your building that you're designing. And you now have a cityscape you want to render. So let's say you want to save this as an image directly from the image, right? But with the white part being transparent. Now there's a couple of places where you can do that. Here's one way you could do that. You use the magic wand to select the white pixels. Right? Click on the white pixels. You see a color change here because I also have a selection overlay showing it. If I don't do that, if I uncheck this, it doesn't change the color of the deselected part. But I selected the white background. That one stays at its original color. Now I'm going to invert the selection. Right? And again, if I prefer to have the overlay enabled. Now I see that part is not selected. Right? Selected is on the inside. And that's the image I'm going to save as a PNG, because the inside is opaque when it's selected, the outside is transparent when it's not selected, right? So you simply go to the file menu and do a save as, and you say city oval or something like that, whatever you want to call it, city oval. You can save it as a Targa. That will have an option presented. And you should definitely not save it as a 24-bit color, because that will only be RGB, red, green, blue colors. What you want is 32-bit colors, so the alpha channel saves with it. Right? So that's one way to save it. If you prefer to have it as a PNG, you simply do the same thing and switch to the PNG format. Now the PSD, the Photoshop, not super powerful, no layers. It's whatever ImageMagick does. And we can have it in a few other formats. I haven't used OpenEXR much lately, so I don't know how robust that one is. There's our layered format. You can certainly use that. I don't even know if the alpha goes with that. You know what? Let me try that too. So let me save it as PNG. That's the city oval. And then I'm going to go to save again. And then this time I'm going to save it to layered format. And that's our LYR, layer format. And that's that. So now let's say we completely change this and toss it and go to something new or smaller. And we say we want to open that image. And so the PNG, when we load that one should have actually, where's the CD? There, this one. This one should have the alpha channel in it too. The preview might not show it. But if we look at it, if we show the selection on off, yep, sure enough, right? So it doesn't necessarily reveal it until you ask for it, but it did load that. It found it in the image file and it loaded it. So after you import that image, you may want to store it. And that stored copy, again, also only shows red, green, blue in the preview, but it does actually have the alpha here somewhere, replace alpha. So the alpha has been received and stored from this here to the stored copy, and you can still recover that as well. So for instance, if you clear it and clear the selection here, you can certainly just click here and that will load the RGB without the alpha, but the alpha was stored too, so you can replace that as well. Always keep that in mind. You have really both saved or stored when you store the image. So that's one way to handle this. One thing I wanted to check also is, and let's make this a little smaller, so it's really a new image, different size. Okay, and so one thing I wanted to check also is if we reopen that layered image, this one, right? That one's our native layered format. If we do that, the layered format should be requested here. So it's filtering, it's showing only these. And then at this point, yep, it does restore the alpha to you. So, because another thing it also has is when you save it as layered, it saves all the layers, of course, but it also saves the swap image. Right, so, and I didn't talk about swap image yet in this tutorial, so let me do this. If I wanted to have in the swap buffer, here's the big S for swap. You can jump to the swap buffer. And let's say I'm painting something here. I should be in the paint tool when I try to paint, so there you go. Okay, that's not what I want to paint. Let's say I want to use one of the other brushes. I don't know, airbrush something, and erase, and then just do something like this, and that's in the swap image, right? And then so switching back, I don't see it. Flipping back and forth, I see it. It's basically, imagine the backside of your canvas, right? And the canvas is not transparent, although you can make it temporarily. Click this icon here and you'll see them both. Okay, so when you do this, you also want to save not just the alpha, not just the image RGB values, but also the swap image and layers on top of that if you have any. So that's something it does. Now let's see, the selection is clear right now, so I'm going to actually restore the selection that came from this one. What was it? This one here, replace alpha. And let's say I wanted to actually have the inverse. I don't care about the pictures in here, the colors in here. I want the inverted side. So I'm going to say, oh, no, even better. I'm going to have half of this here. I'm going to have another rectangle here. And right with the shift key down, I'm going to do a selection here to remove from that selection. And so what we now have is no selection on the outside of the oval, some selection on the inside, and then no selection on this inside rectangle. And maybe we'll do a few more openings here with the shift key and the left button down. We make a few more openings. So you see now we have a somewhat sophisticated selection mask. And occasionally you may want to do grab this, kind of store it as a little floating selection, just in case you mess something up and you want to get back to that easily, or you store the image because you know that also stores the alpha channel. Between those two images, the red, green, blue don't show any difference, but there is a difference, and that is the alpha channel is different. So for instance, if you were to delete this, clear this selection, you can certainly go back here where we stored it and replace the alpha back in here. So let's say this is what we want to save as a, not just as a PNG, but even more so to also include the mask that's there behind it. Not the mask, the swap image. So you do this, you go to save, and so this one is going to be the layered format, and it's kind of similar to this. Let's call it CD Oval Plus, and also with swap. Right, so there's some swap image, and save that. All right, so at this time, if we lose everything, clear everything, delete everything, create a new image, start from scratch, and we go back to opening. So right now, if we look at the swap, there's nothing in the swap. There's nothing stored. If we go back to opening, the one here that should have the swap image and the new alpha channel, boom, right? We have the RGB values, we have the selection mask, you see the marching ants, you see the overlay also. If you hide it, you don't see, but you still see the marching ants. And you can, sometimes you work without marching ants, sometimes you work with just the alpha, I mean the overlay. Anyway, the point is that it also saved the alpha channel, and ta-da, it also saved the swap image, right? And yes, take my word for it, it also saves layers. That's why we call it the layered format, but it does save a little bit more than just the layers. All right, enough for this quick one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon later.